The man who stands under the streetlight. Have you ever looked outside late at night and noticed someone standing under a streetlight for far too long, perfectly still, like they've been waiting there long before you ever noticed them? The first time I saw him, it was just after midnight while I was locking my front door. Across the street, under the dim yellow streetlight, a man stood alone. At first, nothing about it seemed unusual. People walk late at night all the time, and I assumed he was checking his phone or waiting for a ride. But when I glanced back through the window, a few minutes later, he was still there. Same exact position beneath the light, facing toward my side of the street. He wasn't pacing or shifting his weight. He wasn't smoking or scrolling through his phone. He was simply standing there, quietly under the buzzing streetlight. Eventually, I went upstairs to get ready for bed and stopped thinking about it. By the time I checked again later, the sidewalk was empty. The next night, just after midnight again, I passed the front window and looked outside without really thinking. The same man was standing under the same streetlight, same posture, same direction, facing directly toward my house, like he had been there all evening waiting for something to happen. This time I stayed at the window longer, watching carefully from behind the curtain. 5 minutes passed, then another 5. The man never moved even slightly. The only movement came from the faint flicker of the streetlight above him and the slow wind pushing leaves across the pavement. Eventually, the silence started feeling uncomfortable, so I stepped away from the window and turned off the living room lights before going upstairs. When I checked one last time before going to sleep, the sidewalk was empty again, like no one had ever been there. The third night was when something started to feel wrong. I looked outside around the same time and saw him standing there again beneath the light. But this time, his head was tilted upward slightly, and it took me a moment to realize he wasn't looking across the street anymore. He was looking directly at the second floor of my house, where my bedroom window was. The same window I was standing in. I stepped back from the glass immediately, my heart suddenly racing in a way that didn't make any sense. Maybe he just noticed movement through the curtains, I told myself. Maybe he saw a shadow when I walked up to the window. So I waited a few minutes before slowly stepping forward again to check if he had left. He was still there beneath the streetlight, still looking up, not blinking, not moving, just staring at the exact same spot on my house, like he knew someone was standing there watching him. That's when I pulled out my phone and zoomed the camera toward the streetlight to see his face more clearly. The yellow light made his features visible just enough for the camera to focus. And the moment the image sharpened, something about it made my stomach drop instantly. Because the man wasn't actually looking at my window. He was looking slightly higher, directly at the roof above my bedroom. And slowly, as if he knew I had finally noticed where he was really looking, the man under the streetlight began to smile. The locked stairwell. I entered the building after hours, keys in hand, heading to the basement for maintenance. The stairwell smelled of damp concrete and old dust, completely silent except for my footsteps. The light flickered above, casting uneven shadows along the walls. I paused, hearing something shift in the darkness below, faint, deliberate, like someone descending silently behind me. I called out, no response. Only the echo of my own voice bounced between walls, stretched unnaturally, heavier than it should have been. I moved down slowly. Each step felt heavier, as if the air itself resisted me, pushing back, subtle but unmistakable, almost tactile. Halfway down, the door at the bottom clicked softly. I froze. The metal frame vibrated lightly, though no one had touched it. I strained my ears. A soft scrape echoed from below, like metal dragging across concrete, slow, measured, patient, testing the stairwell for weaknesses. The basement door was locked. I had the only key. The sound should have been impossible. I pressed closer to the steps, listening. The scrape continued, then shifted to soft, wet thumps, irregular but deliberate, echoing off every wall. I considered turning back. My gut screamed to leave, but curiosity rooted me, feet frozen as the sound grew closer, approaching the landing above me. I turned sharply, expecting someone to emerge from the shadows. Nothing, just empty concrete, thick darkness, and the faint echo of movement. I descended again. The noise paused with each step, resuming the moment I moved, like it was mirroring my actions, predicting, learning my patterns. The stairwell felt alive. The air thickened, vibrating subtly against my skin, the walls seemingly breathing with the rhythm of some unseen presence. I reached the bottom. The door was still locked. Scratches lined the metal edges, deep, fresh, as if something had been trying to claw its way through. I shined my flashlight. Dust motes floated in the beam, but the shadows at the corners of the stairwell thickened unnaturally, like darkness with weight. I heard breathing then, low, slow, close, exhaling against the wall, not mine. I couldn't determine direction, but it pressed against me, heavy and oppressive. The thumping resumed, now against the steps behind me, soft and rhythmic, like someone pacing just out of sight. I turned, nothing visible. My light caught the edge of the concrete, a flicker, but no form, no figure, just shadows bending strangely. A sudden gust of cold air pushed against my back, carrying a faint smell of iron, damp, and something acrid like burnt fabric. I edged forward. Each step creaked unusually loud, yet the basement remained otherwise empty, silent, as if the building itself was holding its breath. The sound moved again, now beneath the steps, low thuds, resonating through concrete, vibrating the soles of my shoes. I tried the door again. Locked, unyielding. The scratches seemed fresher now, deeper, forming patterns too precise for any human hand. I backed up, flashlight trembling. Shadows shifted along the walls, stretching impossibly long, curling inward as if following me, guiding me towards something unseen. The air felt heavier. I could hear whispers now, low, fragmented, syllables incomprehensible but sharp, echoing off the walls, surrounding me, pressing inward. I glanced at the steps above. The landing was empty, but I could swear I saw a shape, tall, thin, blurred, stretching unnaturally along the edge. I stepped down faster. The thumping accelerated, echoing, moving, circling me, following, anticipating, learning my pace. The whispers grew, overlapping, pressing into my skull, urging me to stop, to look, to acknowledge what I could not see fully. I reached the final step. The basement door remained closed. Silence fell suddenly thick, unnatural, vibrating through my chest. Then a single sharp scratch rang out on the metal door, followed by a low exhale that seemed to come from the walls themselves. I ran up the stairs, never glancing back, feeling every shadow stretch, every vibration follow, every whisper brushing the edges of my mind. Outside, the air felt normal again. The stairwell looked ordinary, concrete, silent, empty, as if nothing had occurred. I left the building and never returned after dark. Yet sometimes, when alone, I hear the faint sound of thumps and scratching, just enough to remind me. That stairwell is waiting, patient, learning, and one day it won't be silent. The light that wouldn't turn off. Close your eyes for a second. Imagine flipping your bedroom light switch off at night. Room goes dark. Quiet settles. You think the switch controls everything. That's how tonight's story begins. Ordinary, quiet, safe. But what you're about to hear didn't stay that way. It's drawn from real tenant footage, electrician logs, neighbor reports, pieces that don't add up. This isn't about monsters or screams. It's about turning the light off, walking away, and it turning itself back on. Soft glow creeps under the door, like someone is waiting in your room. If that thought makes your skin crawl, stay with me. Because once it starts, it doesn't stop halfway. An early 2026 -30-year-old librarian, Nora, moved into a second-floor apartment in an old house. Rent affordable, building quiet, bedroom light, simple wall switch. Everything felt normal. First week, no problems at all. One night she flipped the switch off, went to bed, fell asleep fast. Around 2:50 a.m., faint glow under the door woke her. Light was on again. She got up, opened the door, room empty, switch flipped up. She turned it off, checked the bulb, normal, went back to sleep. 2 nights later, same thing, light on, soft yellow under the door. She walked in, switch up, room empty again. She flipped it down, watched for a minute. Nothing happened. The next night she recorded it, phone propped, light off. She left. At 2:47 a.m. footage showed the switch slowly move up by itself. Click. Light on, no hand, no tool, no draft. She watched the clip, stomach dropping, unplugged the lamp, slept with it in closet. Glow stopped for 3 nights. She thought it was over. Then one night, 3:05 a.m., faint click from inside the closet. She opened the door, lamp plugged back in, light on, bulb warm. She hadn't touched it. She threw the lamp away, bought a new one, different switch type. First night with new lamp, light stayed off all night. Second night, 3:22 a.m., click, light on again. She stared at the switch, watched it move up, slow, deliberate. No one in the room, just the switch flipping alone. She moved out next weekend, left the key, never returned. New tenant moved in. Single guy, gamer. On his 6th night, he posted online. Bedroom light turns on at 3 a.m. Switch moves by itself. He lasted 10 days. Officially no wiring fault, no tampering, no explanation. But electricians say the switches feel sticky, like something pushes back. If you leave a light on at night, very late, when quiet, you might hear click. Room gets brighter, like someone is finally able to see. We may never know what was flipping that switch, or how long it waited for dark to end. Was it always in the wiring patient behind the plate? Did it learn your sleep, your habits, your fear of the dark? The details don't add up, and next time you turn off your bedroom light, don't walk away too fast. Because sometimes the glow under the door isn't a mistake, it's an invitation. If this gripped you, drop theories below. What was turning on the light? Would you have unplugged everything? Best ones I'll shout out next video. New here, subscribe for more that linger after dark, notifications on. Because sometimes the scariest light is the one you didn't turn on. Thanks for listening. Sleep tight or don't. The whispering behind my walls. It began one night when I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, and heard a faint whisper coming from the walls behind my headboard. At first I ignored it, thinking it was the house settling, or the wind brushing against the siding outside my bedroom. The whisper repeated the following night, soft, deliberate, almost like a voice trying to speak a single word. I couldn't quite make out. I pressed my ear against the wall, heart racing, and it stopped abruptly, as if the presence had noticed me listening. Over the next few nights, it became more persistent, moving along the walls, sometimes behind the dresser, sometimes near the closet, always whispering softly. It wasn't random. The pattern was clear. The whispers appeared around 2:40 in the morning every night, lasting exactly 7 to 10 minutes. I tried to sleep through it, but the sound seemed to press against my head, wrapping around my skull, chilling me to the bone. I began recording the sound with my phone, hoping to capture evidence of someone hiding in my walls or a structural anomaly. The next morning I listened. The recording contained faint whispers, distorted, almost unintelligible, but I could swear some syllables were repeated deliberately, like someone trying to form words. I inspected the walls, tapping gently to see if the sound responded. Each time I touched the plaster, the whispering shifted slightly, as if reacting to my movements. I considered calling an electrician, a structural inspector, even a paranormal investigator. But the sound wasn't mechanical. It felt alive, aware, patient. One night I left the lights on in the bedroom, hoping to diminish the presence, but the whispers grew louder, sharper, as if angered by the illumination. I attempted to trace the source behind the closet wall, gently moving boxes and clothes, but the whispers moved with me, always just out of reach. The next night, I left a small tape recorder running behind the bed while I slept. What I heard when I played it back froze me. The whispers weren't just sounds. They were forming phrases, repeating a name that sounded exactly like mine, over and over, growing louder with each repetition. I could feel the vibrations against the plaster, the pressure intensifying, as if the walls themselves were alive and pressing toward me while I lay in bed. I tried recording every night after that, but the whispers always adjusted their timing, appearing later, earlier, never exactly the same, as if aware of my attempts. The sound began to move, traveling from one wall to another, shifting directions, following me as I walked across the bedroom. Sometimes I swore I could hear footsteps accompanying it, soft, deliberate, pacing along the attic floorboards above the bedroom. Other times I felt a cold draft behind me, even when every window was closed, as if the whispers were exhaling through the walls themselves. I started sleeping with my back to the wall, hoping the presence wouldn't focus on me, but it always found a way, whispering louder into the side of the bed. I tried speaking to it, softly, "What do you want?" The whispers responded in tones I couldn't understand, almost mocking me, repeating my name faster and louder each time. The pattern intensified. Every night the whispers returned at the exact same time, following the same route behind the walls, pressing closer, wrapping around the bedroom unseen. I set up motion sensors along the walls, hoping to detect any intruder, but the devices never registered movement, only silence in the physical sense. The pressure became unbearable. I could feel the vibrations in my ribs, the whispered syllables vibrating in my skull, keeping me awake, keeping me tense. One night the whisper said something I understood perfectly. "Closer." My stomach dropped, and I froze, unable to move, heart hammering. I listened as the whispers moved, rising behind the headboard, sliding along the wall toward me, stronger than ever, cold and suffocating. I tried to escape to the hallway, but the presence followed, slipping through the walls, whispering my name as I fled to the living room. Now, every night, I can hear it moving, whispering, tracing my steps through the house, patient, deliberate, waiting for me to sleep in the wrong place. I can't ignore it. The walls are alive, the whispers persistent, and I know it won't stop until it gets exactly what it wants.